And we're back with the question and answer session with Nightcob and Griffin on our discussion on 4.0. What is 4.0 and its legacy, and the legacy of 4.0 is going to be now and in the distant future. Good conversations about sort of the trajectory and how 4.0 is looking as a immediate and also as a patch going forward. So this is where the section where we're going to take questions from the chat. If you missed that section, obviously, go ahead and right above Nightcob's head, you will see a link. You can click that link, and that link will take you back to the recorded section, so you can watch that. If you're listening to this in the podcast format, which we do have on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere good podcasts are, you will be able to. This will just be linked together. I'll put them together, so you don't even have to have a break. So. You're lucky. And for those people who don't, you want to have like a lower bit form. So it doesn't, since I know not everyone has the ability to stream YouTube audio, just audio well, you can always check that out as well. Subscribe to us on the Captain's Table podcast there. All right. The first question is from, Starfarer, who asks, question, will crafting and construction have environmental consequences such as depleting a planet's resources or affecting its ecosystem? Chris,
yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was like, Chris, you're going to talk about the Chris graffiti thing? Because I know that's one thing that we...
No. I was going to talk about go back to Tony Zervik thing. So you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, when they talked about this a little while ago, when he was talking about... bringing in the idea of quanta, which we know has been renamed now. And I remember when he first mentioned this, and he talked about factories and drilling and all this. I'm like, factories? Where are they? What the what? But what they said was that resources can be depleted. In fact, that's just come up again recently. I think on yesterday's show,
Star Citizen Live.
They talked about Star Citizen Live, that resources will deplete, and the idea of resources depleting is so that once you've tapped that out, you've got to move yourself someplace else to find more resources. Now, I think Zervik said over time it may slowly come back, but in general, resources will deplete. That's the only thing I wanted to respond to on that part of the question.
Okay. No, I was going to say there's a famous quote or not famous quote, but a famous statement that Chris made in back in that one of the things he wanted to happen was even landing zones to be dynamic, where if the economy was struggling in one area because of various factors, maybe pirates were blockading the area, that you'd actually see the landing zones begin to degrade. So like maybe more windows broken, more graffiti on walls and stuff like that. That was Chris Roberts doing a Chris Robertsonism, where it's just like imagine. It's his idea, which may not be the same thing as reality, but I wouldn't, if they could get away with it, 100% CIG will do it. If CIG wants to turn the landscape in, you're a beautiful, pristine landscape of some planet, and you let you turn it into Hurston, they will let you do it. It's just a matter of other issues. What's the beer, by the way, Nightcob?
Kentucky Vanilla Barrel Cream Ale.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
What do you think, Nightcob? Do you think CIG is going to allow for like environmental changes and tapping of resources?
I'm sorry, Paul. Could you ask the question one more time?
So the question was, do you think with crafting and base building that they're going to allow environmental impact? So like if you are in an area where you are mining, you build a house or you build a base and you're like gathering resources, do you think those resources will be finite? And the more you doing crafting and stuff like that, it might dirty the atmosphere or destroy the local fauna and flora.
Oh, okay. I understand your question better now. I'll be honest with you, because you guys answered it. Now that's why I asked you to ask it again. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So what I thought you originally asked, and I'm going to steal it for that purpose a little bit, is what I really wanted was, and I kind of reversed it in my head, is environmental impact to mining.
Oh.
Where it's like, hey, you can mine this thing, but good luck because the winds are heavy. Your ship doesn't. If your ship doesn't have VTOL,
the rock strata is the
storm.
Yeah,
exactly. Or like there's a storm. It's a habitually stormy environment, and that lightning strike that they showed off in CitizenCon might kill you. So there's a high risk component to mining. I'll be honest with you. I think we've got enough of the whole environmental impact of mining thing going on in our real day-to-day lives. So I don't really need that shit in a video game. That'll just depress the fuck out of me. So You know, if they don't do that, I'm totally okay. But I would like the reverse. I would totally like the reverse. I would like hazards to
Yeah.
mining and
Yeah.
resource gathering in major ways.
I would kill for gas pockets being a thing in Star Citizen, where like you hit the wrong gas pocket, you're gonna have to like quickly do a bunch of things to prevent the from a blowout to destroy your mining rigs, those sorts of things. Those sorts of
that would be hot.
You know,
Yeah.
like taking actual. Obviously, it's a game, so you don't want to go too hard, but taking actual inspiration from the hazards of drilling for resources and what they can do. So, just I mean, they want to do the same thing with radiation, which is when they do, I do want you to come on because you are an expert, Night Cobb, in that sort of field. So how close they got to reality. So,
I wish you wouldn't sell me that way, but yeah.
The old what's the old joke? When the lights turn off, do you glow?
Yeah, but that's just because I don't get sun, dude. You can see it in the camera, man. I'm like, has nothing to do with the radiation. I just don't get sunlight. All right, that's why I'm as pale as I am. Right?
Yeah, being in a metal tube that does do that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's just nothing but fluorescence down there, guys. It's like, I'm sorry, nothing to do with radiation, unfortunately. That's cancer. All right, now we've all had a good dose of reality. We can move on.
All right, next question comes from Gin and Tonic, who asks, true persistence, logging where you log out, when? Okay. I think Jin's trying to fish for a prediction. Do any of you feel comfortable predicting when we're going to see true persistence?
I will let Griffin go first on this one.
Are we talking about persistence for bed logging? Is that what he said?
The idea being like when you log out of the game, if you say you're in your Mustang in deep space, you log out of your game, you come back, you're back in that Mustang rather than like waking up in your last. I
hate to say this, I do that now. I mean, maybe I'm freaky. I bed log now.
Yeah, but I mean, like that you choose to. The question he's asking is like when will it no longer be a choice? When CIG is no longer asking, they're telling you.
Well, can I amend that? Because
sure.
I agree that it's possible now to do that as a solo player. I think what probably the better question is, and it might be what they originally intended, I don't know. When is it going to be possible for me to bed log on Griffin's Polaris and then be able to log back in and I'm on his Polaris? He doesn't need to be logged in. He's out in deep space somewhere, and I've got an Avenger Titan in the hangar, and I can take off from Avenger Titan. I can go do my gameplay session while his Polaris sits in space, and then I come back and I bed log in his Polaris again, and that's my gameplay loop. You know what I mean?
Okay, we're talking about that, like the final version of bed logging.
Persistence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where you're no longer, it's no longer just bed logging. It's bed logging, but also just like where you can persist beyond just the logging out of your bed and come back in.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't have a guess on that one. I know that they said they had a new idea for it of how it was going to work and everything, but I haven't seen enough out there to say a timeline.
Yeah,
I will make a bold prediction, which is going to be wrong. So I make a bold prediction, kind of like my Theaters of Orc predictions, where every year I make a Theaters of Orc predictions.
You put a waiver on it right at the very.
Yeah, that kind of takes the teeth out of your prediction.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'm just gonna spit some bullshit at you guys. Is what he really just said.
I'm gonna make an educated wish, as Deadpool would like to say. I'm gonna make an educated wish and say 2 years. I think 2026 is when we're gonna see it.
Okay.
Your educated wish hurts. I don't like your educated wish. I don't like that one.
Okay.
Well, because like they need to get dynamic in. There's a bunch of other things they got to worry about. They probably got to go in there, like they got to put on the long rubber gloves and just start getting inside that engine and start pulling junk out. And what do they call it? Like peeling the onion. They got to peel that onion a little bit more. They got to pull out the rotten bits and replace them with new stuff. And it's going to take a while for them to get to that optimization stage through that. And I don't think they do that until they feel comfortable enough with their back end that it won't light on fire when 5 million people are all trying to persist at the same time. I think it's as close to 1.0 as they can get without actually just being a 1.0 feature. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's my educated wish for that.
I don't like your educated wish.
It hurts. Gin and Tonic asks, how can you blame CIG for the culture shock when CIG has said all along what's coming? Those that are shocked haven't been paying attention to the building of the game, building their game in their head instead of paying attention to the game Chris was building.
Yeah.
My counter to that, as I will say real quick, is CIG could have said no. They could have said, no, we're not looking at that right now. We may reevaluate in the future. They rarely said no. Almost every time someone came up with a crazy fucking idea of what this game would be, Chris would say, we'll look into it, or maybe. So he never shut down the conversation. Partially because I'm sure
just him.
It's everyone. Yeah, everyone in the team was doing that. And because they were very afraid. Sometimes they did. Like, that's one of the things I loved about Todd Pappy is that they'll ask a question, Todd Pappy will just say no. And I'm just like, thank you. Oh God. Because it felt like it was this aimless, there was no like vision. It was just whatever people came up with, Chris would say yes, because for whatever reason. We all knew that Chris had a vision, but there was like, I could tell you because every time people like myself or Griffin or Nightcob would say, this is what the game that is going to happen, you would have 15 different people arguing 15 different things about what the game will be, rather than, based off of a statement Chris made, 6 years ago at a Bar Citizen in China. Like, people will hang on to everything and anything they say as a this is going to be the thing. And they never peeled back that, because they wanted to keep the optimism. They wanted to keep the hope alive, rather than being like, hey, this is what we're planning. Anything that's beyond this is, stuff we might do, but we're not looking at it right now. They very rarely said that. They sometimes said it, but not enough to actually really sink into the fact that, to the community, like, not everything you want is going to happen, and it led to that. They
not only that,
well,
not only that, but they countered it on God knows how many occasions. Guys, think about if you've watched SCL.
Yeah.
Think about how many times Jared has had to, I'm going to coin a phrase right now, Jared-splain. The only constant in game development is change. And then think about how many times development team members have gotten asked questions, and the answers have revolved around statements like, well, we could do that. Well, we're thinking about doing it. Well, like, that would be a good idea. And these are things that we have in mind, or they're all soft vagaries, or at least they're consistently soft vagaries of the idea of like, hey, these are good ideas. We could incorporate them. Rare is the day that one of the developers on that show in a public forum, including Jared himself, is going to say, yeah, that's not happening. Or, yeah, that is exactly the plan, and we're sticking to that plan.
Say the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, bottom line has been like, so even in the sense of like, well, they've written us the ideas for, the last 10 years of exactly what's coming. Yeah, I agree. They've messaged to some degree the direction that the game is going. Yeah, but rare is the day. And to be clear, Jen, I know you just wrote there and they did that on Friday.
We all, that's what we were saying. We like that they're doing it now. Like we know they're doing it now.
Yes.
But they did this. This is a problem of their own making. They've created their own monster.
Yeah.
That's the
I promise you go back and watch the SCLs for the last 6 years. They're very rarely doing that's not going to be a fucking thing game. Like, I promise. Like, I've watched plenty of SCLs to know that they spin a lot of vagaries, or they do a lot of soft answers, what I would call them. Where it's like ooh, we could do that. We're thinking about that, blah, 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 blah. And very rare is the day where they're just like, yeah, no, that's not something we're reaching for, or they'll do the really soft, we'll think about doing that in the future, but for now it's going to be this. But, that leaves that open-ended for people to theory craft of like, oh, the game's going to be potentially something that I would like later based on the fact that they want to do that in the future. And it's like, that's not, they said they'd think about it. And it's not like a technical agreement to this thing that's coming in the future. And again, I'll stand by what I said earlier, Jen. Like, unless they do it in the game, like I said, your engagement on everything else is just words. Like, you show your player base what your actions are and which way the game is heading by what you do in the game. And if you don't do it in the game,
before I hand it over to you, Griffin, on this one, the one thing I will also add to this is I'm glad that they're doing this now, that they're saying no. But at the same time, sorry, someone said something earlier about something, and I wanted to make sure. Someone was saying that people filter out such conditions in for service. We all know this. How many times have they said something and we've all said that people can take it as a promise? Jared said, we're shooting for 4.0 to release in summer. What did people hear? They heard 4.0 is coming out in June.
Yep.
They didn't hear the conditional statement. They heard 4.0 is coming out in June, even though CIG summer isn't until August. Like that's their patch. Their quarter 3 patch is August, and that's the summer patch, not the Q2 patch. So it's like, we know people do this. They've known people do this for years, and they didn't change their language. And I think it's because they were afraid. They're afraid of losing funding, because if people became realistic about what the game was going to be, that they would just step away rather than embrace it. So, and that's their fault. You know? Griffin, you were saying?
No, just real quick, just some quick examples. Last year, during CitizenCon, we did a show, and we talked about the F8. Remember all the rage that went out with the F8. And as part of doing the research on that, I went back and looked. There were at least 4 or 5 times on either an what do they call it, ATV, some other conversations, where Ben Lesnick talked about putting the F8 out on sale before Squadron came out. It wasn't a foreign thing. He said they had several conversations about that possibly happening. And my reason why I'm mentioning that is because there are thousands of hours of video, thousands of newsletters, thousands of website versions. I mean, it's all the stuff out there. And to sort through all that stuff and find like every detail of what CIG has talked about would be a monumental task. So it's difficult to do the research to find out always what has been said by CIG. Sometimes you can. Some of it is lost in little tidbits. Sometimes it's an inference that Chris made back in the 10 for the chairman days. Sometimes it was something that was said during reverse the verse. I mean, it's just so much out there to try and track as to, but to these guys' point, this monster has gotten created over the years. I appreciate the fact that CIG to a certain degree has said we're open to all ideas and we never want to, block things out. But that also comes back to bite you in the butt when there's a certain path that they know they want to take with the game and they don't clarify. Like the thing with Sata Ball broke a lot of people's hearts when they said Sata Ball was just a test. There's no intention for it, but it's in lore. It's not on the table, and so that's one of those
just
examples.
Delete that little bit about lore.
Yeah, and it's in the lore on top of it, right? Which is really interesting, but it's something that they've said that right now it's not there. So it's an interesting balance between, as you guys mentioned, the things that they've hedged on, the things that they've given a lot of latitude for, and maybe some, in many ways, there's a little bit of price to be paid for giving that latitude in the end when it's all said and done.
Yeah, they didn't. When the game was becoming more solidified after 2016, when Chris was finally starting to see what the game was going to be, and the management team and the developers were starting to see where they were going to go with this, with like landing and stuff like that, they never stepped back and said, let's start reining in expectations. CIG's bad at managing expectations. They've always been bad at managing expectations, which is the reason why when I say something like, I think CIG's planning on releasing in 4.0, and CIG says, we're still releasing 4.0 this year, like, most of the community goes, nah, you're lying. Like, it's not even like a thing. People just accept that CIG doesn't know what they're talking about, even though it's their game and they're looking at it. And that's like half the community is just like, they're not going to do it. Yeah. Like, because there's this trust factor that CIG has blown up over the years where they just,
But we also rail against what's convenient.
Yes.
Right. We rail against the sale of the F8. But I didn't hear anybody screaming at CitizenCon when they said, "Oh, you can build a freaking Idris now." You know what I'm saying? They never told us about going out and freaking building a freaking Bengal carrier. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Nobody's hollering about that promise being, So it's like, before it was like, oh, you might find one floating out in space somewhere that maybe you can repair. But so, we pick and choose what's convenient about what we want to holler about too.
As Paul can attest, there were actually a couple people that started railing about being able to build a big one, but in his server, no less. Anyway, but that's a side point. I don't disagree with you in the sense that like we will pick the convenient things to rail about in this community. You know what? I'm just gonna let that die there. Just gonna let that die there.
Yeah, we got more questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we got more questions.
We got more questions. All right, next question comes from all the way back up. From Dropped Yogurt, who asks, first off, my man Griff, how you doing, brother? Then also the question is, I guess this is two questions. When do you think we'll get to name our ships?
Ooh, you mean the continued naming them?
Yes, like every ship being named, I think is what the question. So what do you think, Griff?
That was another one that they floated out there just to test it, just to see what it was like. Obviously by 1.0, obviously by then, I think that's going to be a common feature. And it's under great demand. I mean, you don't hear people holler too much, but people love the idea of customizing their ship, whether it's with a paint or their name, making something their own. So it would be a great boon anytime they introduce that now. They're going to introduce it somewhere between 4.0 and 1.0. That's all I can say. I don't know when, but it'll happen before we get to 1.0, because I think that individualizing ships thing is a big thing for folks. They really like that my ship is named after this, or it's this color and stuff like that.
Nightcap?
I'm just gonna copy Griffin on that
Say
one.
1.0.
Just put that in the category. I'm sorry, guys. It's in the category of who the fuck cares for me.
I care, Nightcap. I care. Well, I do care, but I also think that it's one of those. You kind of highlight this point pretty well, which is that is it important for playing Star Citizen? The answer is no. CIG is going to put it off to the very last moment, because that's the reason why we have it in the first place. Was CIG had the people who were doing ship stuff had the time, and so they sat down and they built out a system, and they were in the hopes that the system would work well. And if they felt like if this system worked well, we could then roll it out to everybody else. And in classic CIG fashion, it didn't work well. So instead of investing more time and energy to try to figure it out, they just said, well, we got to move on. We've got bigger fish to fry. We'll get back to it eventually. Just like the 300i customization thing with ships and stuff like that. We'll get back to it at some point, as is basically what CIG has been saying. So I do think 1.0 is probably the safe bet on this one, just because there's so many things. Like they've got so many ships they gotta modernize and those sorts of things. So
of all the things I've said tonight, I have a feeling that's the one that's going to generate the most hate in my direction. I've already gotten the "you have no soul," "you're fired," and I'm just laughing about it. I'm just like, well, one, you're correct in that I don't have a soul. Two, I'm doing this in my free time. You can't fire me.
There you go.
Yeah, this is guys. I want it. I just don't want it to become a priority over a great many other things.
They'll break. And the thing is if they do it before it's ready, it'll break, and then we get the same situation we have now. Yeah. It'll come when it comes. I hope it's sooner rather than later, but. All right. Next question comes from Ackland, who asks, how far is the crafting platform going to go?
Ooh. What? How far?
Like how much crafting is going to be? I think CIG was pretty clear. They want everything to be craftable.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, they've expanded it.
Like
way beyond what we thought.
Didn't they joke about like food even? Like food fabricators are going to be a thing?
Yeah, they said that it was coming.
Yeah.
So, crafting is everything. So, the how far is however far they can go with it. CIG will find the limits, and then they'll be like, "Oh, we're done now." So, all right, I think that's pretty quick. Next question comes from Bundo, who asks, "What would the best support ships you think, based off of the talks in IAE, show like combat and non-combat? What would be the best support ships, you think, based off of the talks in the IAE show?
I think they mean the capital ship combat, like what, because they referenced a lot, like, hey, you're supporting ships and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, repair, rearm, your Colliers, something that needs to fix you up.
Yeah, like how do you build out your fleet if you're going to engage in capital style combat? I'm guessing that's where their heads at.
But what are the best support ships? I think.
Yeah.
Right now, the Vulcan. It's something I would get, because the Vulcan is such a universal. The Vulcan and the Crucible. I think those are the two most vital ones, because the Vulcan can do most of your small ships, and then the Crucible is like can fully fix them, and then also expand, at least if it still sticks to its current metric, fix like the fleet, like the big heavy ships and stuff like that. So, what do you think, Nightcob?
I got a lot of questions about what you just said, because those ships aren't in game yet, and we don't know what they're going to be.
Well, we do. We know their roles, but like,
we do. But oh man, this is like a whole other topic, and I don't want to dive on
how much
like
CIG changes.
Grenade, right? Yeah, like I've got a lot of questions why those ships are not in development, because we have now salvaging gameplay, which was supposed to be like the precursor to repair gameplay, because it's just the fucking reverse by a lot of things. We now have the physicalization of things like torpedoes and missiles. We're really just missing bullets for ballistic guns. And stop me if I'm wrong. This was before my time, but didn't the ballistic, some of the like size 3 and below ballistic guns, they have like little ammo boxes? Like that was a separate asset that you could like reload it with.
That was
once upon a time ago.
Arena Commander days. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I feel like we're super close to repair gameplay and rearming gameplay, at least closer than we ever have been in the recent past. And yet those ships are not ending up on the, hey, this is what's in development in the next 12 months. And I have no fucking idea why. Because I feel like it's a completionist game loop to, it's a missing piece of the puzzle that I just don't understand why we're not even focused on right now.
Crafting is the next 12 months, but repair isn't, which is confusing.
But you don't need crafting for repair, because you could buy stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, you got to stick it together. You got to find some way of sticking that wing you purchased onto the Hornet, Maybe
the wing, but I mean, like torpedoes and bullets. Like, I feel like we're so close, but we're not doing that. And we have just some limited repair capabilities. Engineering's almost in. Yeah. I don't know, man.
I agree.
I have a lot of questions about that.
That's the thing that's confusing me as well, which is like, why do they have all these emphasis on like base building, crafting, but like, why can't we just, I don't know, have a bullet, flak, different management sizes? Because it's clear, like in Squadron 42, they have some of those aspects in there, even if they're faked. But I'm knowing CIG, it's probably not faked. It's probably the system they're going to use in Star Citizen. But it's like, why can you reload your turret in a Javelin in Squadron 42, but I can't do the same thing for my Hammerhead in the verse? Like, where is that coming from? So, Griffin, what do you think? What do you think is the best support ships for?
You named the ones that I think are always a good part of a decent sized fleet. Them being there. I've also thought about the logistic side, and then the ships like the Terrapin, if you're doing any type of scouting or intelligence, things like that would probably be helpful. I mean, the combat ships, if you're talking about what goes along with a fleet or escort, that could be tough because it depends on what the mission objective is, I think. But I think the ones you named are ones that you should at least consider having with the fleet that's moving out. Intelligence and reconnaissance is just important to me with the fleet, no matter what, because that helps you know how to be prepared. Not just knowing your enemy, but knowing the environment you're going in. Things of that nature is also important. So, those are the ones I would go with off the top of my head. But after that, you've got to customize based on what the mission objective is.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from Fastcart.
Oh, Lord.
Who asks, is 4.0 finally, ultimately, and after all these years, the Jesus patch, or will it be 1.0, and why? The Jesus patch is a myth.
This
is not the Jesus patch. This is the Beelzebub patch. It's the Krampus patch, where it's going to be like, it's going to steal your joy at Christmas, but eventually it'll get better.
Yeah.
I hate the term. I hate the term. The only Jesus patch is the patch that makes your gameplay function. That's it.
Maybe give some history to where that came from,
So
Paul, because that would be helpful.
Especially if you've been around, if you've not been around for a long time. For the years and years and years, people have talked about this mythical Jesus patch, which is a patch which will make the game playable. That's the best like sort of summation. People have been waiting for a game, the patch that releases that says Star Citizen is now a game. I can now play it, and they've been everywhere. It was like, we're talking like 2.0 days when these things were out there. Like, is it going to be 2.4? Is it going to be 2.8? Is it going to be 3.0? Is it, so for once we knew what 4.0 was going to be, everyone has theorized that the 4.0 is going to be this Jesus patch. This patch would come in and make the game good and fun and everyone would enjoy it. And I hate the term because it implies that there's a magic bullet to solving a problem with games. And I've consistently said that the only Jesus patch is when the game releases.
Yeah.
That is when it should be playable. So.
Yep. Agreed.
Do you want to weigh in on this at all, Night Cop?
So it sounds like I came in on a discussion related to the question of something about server mesh and making
no.
patch, or...
I'll read it. It's a fast car question, so you'll appreciate it.
Shit.
Is 4.0
fast car question?
Is 4.0 finally, ultimately, and after all these years, the Jesus patch, or will it be 1.0, and why?
Oh man, that's the most PG question that Fast Cart's fucking ever asked. It's a good question though. I'll give him. So I don't think it's I don't think it's a Jesus patch like you said, Paul. But man, I really do think that there's an impact of this patch because they did sell this a little bit. This is partly their fault too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the community's fault for believing that server meshing was the key blocking technology. Because don't be wrong, the community has sold it to themselves in a lot of ways. That like anytime somebody challenges, like, well, why can't they make the AI better? Somebody even from the community, just as CIG will, because they're mostly repeating this, is like, well, AI needs server meshing to function because we need better server FPS and stuff like that. And that's the reason that the really cool missions are blocked, from a PvE standpoint. And for a long time, that's the reason that Quanta is really being held back, because if the server FPS is low, then the AI will not function correctly. And it's probably why, from that standpoint, why we don't have escort missions like they promised us at one point in time, because you've seen them standing on chairs. They're definitely not going to walk up a ramp to get in your freaking ship, like at least consistently without any bugs. So you can start drawing a lot of correlation, at least in some regards, to this only gets better once server meshing is in, and then that unlocks other gameplay elements. For a long time, a lot of us thought that was economy or Quanta related missions / economic support, things like escort missions, shit like that. The Genesis Starliner. I'm just saying, for a long time, we have held server meshing as like a critical blocker to a lot of gameplay and development. And I think it is fair to say that if the next year doesn't prove that that was indeed true, there's going to be, some sore feelings and some, pointing of fingers. And I think they may have earned that a little bit because they have at least fostered that idea too. I worry the new thing that they're shifting to now that server meshing is kind of almost out the door is like, well, this will get better once crafting.
Yeah.
Crafting is our new blocker. I worry that that's the new party line.
I would be okay with crafting being the new blocker because at least that's a gameplay. At least I can like tangibly touch crafting. I don't know. You can't touch server meshing. You can't like play server meshing. You can play crafting, but
yeah.
But I don't like the idea.
And crafting's not new tech. Crafting's not new tech. Plenty of other games have done crafting. So it's kind of one of those things like, it's like, okay, well, if that's the next hurdle, that's fine.
You could fake it tomorrow if they wanted to. Like it's not impossible. It's just, put it in a room, close the door, have some smoke and mirrors, and then presto chango thing appears. It's not like a rocket science. So
yeah.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I got a new beer. I use the head. I'm like, everything's good.
All right. Next question comes from Ackland. Speaking of crafting, how far out is crafting after 4.0?
That's,
It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I mean, that's
Throwing
a be
predictions
funny.
out here.
Yeah, I mean, that's a be. Go ahead.
I'll jump on the grenade. 6 months. 6 months after 4.0, we'll have crafting. It's
Holy
not
shit, Paul.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on today, man?
I agree.
I don't think we're going to see everything craftable. I think what they'll do is they'll make like guns and magazines, like weapon magazines, to be craftable, armor to be craftable, and that kind of stuff. Basic stuff.
Okay, well, hold on. What are you talking about? You're talking about limited crafting in 6 months. You're not talking about like
not the full blown thing. No.
Yeah.
Like they'll have some sort of fabricator in game that you can either purchase or you can like find on a ship or something like that.
Well, technically, we already have that.
Yeah,
to some limited extent.
Yeah.
Like we already have like.
That's why I don't think it's going to be too difficult for them to do, because they already do that with the salvage ships. So,
let me ask you this, Paul. If I change it to, if I make it more specific, if I say how long until crafting with the, as shown in Citizen Con, items and gear with bonuses based on materials used, quality materials used. How long till that?
probably not until closer to 1.0, probably 2 years, 2 to 3 years.
Okay, that's a more reasonable.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
I mean, because like, go ahead, Griff.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, I don't know what this window is between 4.0 and 1.0, right? Like, what time frame are we talking about? I mean, some people may think that's a 2 year, 3 year period, 1 year period, whatever. I think that all the stuff we're talking about is built into, I think all of it's built into 4.0 point whatever at some point. Crafting, like you said, Nightcob could, that's not a big deal. What has to happen is what fabricates. What are they going to introduce into the game to allow people to craft? The Vulture does a little bit of thing that it does, and the Reclaimer does that little bit of thing. But you need to have something that comes into the game that starts to build on all of these resources that CIG is about to unleash. Because trade is one aspect, just moving stuff from one location to another. But if crafting comes in, then that whole aspect of trade blows up in a big way, because players there's going to be demand. This idea of incorporating resources into the skins of ships, or when you start salvaging. So all of that stuff's got to kind of mature and move forward a little bit. But even with those resources in there, what are you using to build stuff? I don't care if it's a chair or a torpedo. What is out there in the game that we'll have in our hands that fabricates? And we haven't seen that yet. We saw the demonstrations for the base building, but we don't have anything to fabricate yet. So whenever they introduce that, that's when it blows up for me.
Yeah, I think we get a limited base building within 6 to 9 months, and with that comes limited crafting, small crafting, small fabrication. Yeah. So armor, weapons, and they may have tiers. Maybe have tiers with different things, but like we're talking like not like legendary stuff. Your camera just went out, Nightcob, by the way.
Yeah, somebody's internet was acting weird.
Okay. We
lost him for a second.
Okay. But yeah, I think we have limited stuff like that, but we'll see. Nightcob going offline is how we all know that World War III started.
Fuzzy screen and it disappears, right? I called in.
And I don't think this is like too optimistic, because it's like CIG, that was the point of Citizen Con. Like the two things that they were like very clear on was crafting and base building, and like monster hunting is in 12 to 18 months. Like that was specific, those things. And I think the basic base building they showed was it's like it's missing steps, but it's already there. They just got to work out the steps and some of the details. And it's not something that's, and again, crafting and base building isn't new. It's been around for a very long time. There we go. We're back.
Yep. Yeah,
there he is.
Sorry, I did something silly. My bad.
The joke we said was this is how we know World War III started, because Nightcob just disappeared.
No, I'll sit right here. This is what you'll see when World War III starts and I'm at home. That face.
Yeah, that we'll see them tear it out slowly. It's CIG will do the CIG thing and say we didn't fail. We got everything. We got these things in within 12 to 18 months, and not everything you want. It's never going to be the thing you think it is. It's never going to be as fun as you think it is, but it'll be out. So. Next question. Monstratus asks, after we get everything for 4.0 and possibly Nyx, do you think we'll get Castra soon after? Yeah. But define soon.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, what's soon?
Do you mean
y'all asking a lot of when questions today? Like, did you guys just like come from an SCL episode? Like, what happened here?
So
Jared's not been nice about it, so we're just coming to you guys.
there are three soons that I work off of. There's soon, as in everyone is talking soon. There is solo soon. So multi soon, solo soon, and CIG soon. Multi soon is where like Jared and Thorben, I can't remember his Thorsten.
God, he's my hero, by the way.
Thorsten and Elliot and all of them are talking about it. That's soon. That's like within 2 weeks to like 3 months. Like when they don't shut up about something, it means that they're actively working on it and it's like in development and in a stage of testing and stuff like that. There's the solo soon where, one developer comes up who's in charge of this one thing and they're the only person who ever talks about it. And that means like 9 months to a year, maybe longer. It's like, cause it's like one person is talking about it and maybe 3 other people at CIG actually know about it and everybody else is just waiting for them to show them what they did. And then there's the CIG soon where like they vaguely gesture towards something once in a monthly report or in an SCL, and then they haven't talked about it. They won't talk about it again for 9 months. The Banu Merchantman is CIG soon. But base building is multi soon. Same with creature hunting is multi soon. And something like crafting is more like solo soon, where like you have one or maybe 2 developers actually talking about it, but most of them aren't really dealing with it. So there's also Noonian soon. Yes, thank you. So I think with Castra, it's solo soon. It's a year plus, maybe even CIG soon. We're talking. No one fucking knows. I don't even think CIG knows. Like let's get Nyx out and see how if Nyx doesn't blow everything up, sort of situation before talking about Castra. What do y'all think?
Go ahead,
I'm not even trying.
Oh, really?
No.
Once upon a time ago, Paul, I did my own Star Citizen predictions that is pinned in a couple of chats in Discord servers and stuff like that. And you and I were right about 318. Both of us predicted March.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually said I'm only like 6 months off on most of my predictions right now for like things like server meshing and all that kind of stuff. If they get it out by the end. If they don't get it out by the end, then I start ground. So let's say I've got a plus or minus 6 month victory window right now. I'm going to say Castra. We're going to go with March of 26, guys. There you go.
That's a good one. If you force me to put a date on it, I would say June of 26 because it's the perfect landing zone to introduce with an Invictus.
Oh yeah, well yeah. Well, so that's technically May. May. So how about you know what? I like your thought. Let's both go with because last time you and I both predicted the same month.
Yeah,
it was golden. Let's go with May of 26.
May of 26. Yeah,
there you go.
It may be a little sooner than that, but it'll be out. It'll be out that Q2 patch.
No, that's where he and I defer. It's not going to be any fucking sooner than that.
Well, typically they don't like have Invictus. They don't use the Invictus patch is either like 2 or 3 iterative patches after the initial release, or it's a iterative patch of an older patch. Like they don't like. I don't think they'll drop like Castra And then immediately that'll be the Invictus patch. That'll have to have at least 2. Well, Invictus is at the
because
end
they've
of May.
never done anything like that before.
They did. Yeah.
That's sorry, that was sarcasm. That's my fault.
Oh no, I meant what I meant to say is I don't think they really have. The closest thing they did was this year, and they dropped it 2 weeks before Invictus, and then they did 2 patches for Invictus before Invictus happened. And so it was like I think 3.23.1 came out within a week of going live. I think it was in PTU the day it went live for Invictus stuff. It was like squeaky close with that release. Because I said it was going to be 3.23 had to be the Invictus patch, and everyone was like, nah, it'll be 3.22 and they'll release 3.23 afterwards. And they put it in anyways, and it was rough, but yeah, it did it. What were we gonna say, Griffin?
I want to take this question to the 10th power, if it's okay, and ask you guys this, because I was having this conversation with some friends in our channel this morning, and we've talked about this before on our channel. If we to get back in the Wayback Machine and go back to 2012 with the launch of all this, Chris stated that he wanted it to be that when people played Squadron 42, they would be able to enter the persistent universe afterward. So my question to you is, when do you expect 1.0 in relation to Squadron 42's release? Do you expect it to be ready when Squadron is ready? Do you expect it within 3 months, 6 months, a year, or what? Do you think there will be a huge gap between the launch of Squadron and the launch of 1.0?
Yes and no. Here's my bold my prediction with this one, because based off of how CIG is messaging it, I think internally CIG wants 1.0 to come out in 2026. I think they're insane. I think that's never going to happen. But they want 4.0 or 4.0. They want 1.0 to come out at the same time as Squadron, or as close as possible to Squadron. I think the best we get is they reach a beta state within a couple of months of the release of Squadron, where it's not 1.0, but they're like, this is the 1.0. We need to get 6 months, 6 to 9 months working on this. So we're going to do some iterative patches here and there, but we're not going to add new content. This is all the content that's for 1.0. Come test it, and then one of these patches will just say we're good, and we'll go, and that will be sort of like a year without a patch, but it'll all be like improvements. It'll basically be released a soft launch, as it will, but they can still technically roll back if they need to.
But does that hurt them? 1.0 is supposed to be the commercially viable game that people come back to and they can rely on, right? If you come out of Squadron 42, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's no place to go, but the plan is that people would have a place to go once they've achieved that finishing of that game. So if there's a long wait, will that hurt them or no?
I think it will hurt them, but I also think that it will still end up being fun. Like, we got to remember, when I'm saying like beta, I'm not saying you're falling through the planet, you're glitching out and exploding every 5 minutes. Like most
beta's still testing. Beta's still testing.
It's still testing, and there'll still be problems. But if you remember, Warframe was in beta.
You're willing to say that they're going to launch from Squadron, the finished game, send people into a possible slightly buggy testing environment?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But I mean, I think people have a lot more willingness.
Nightclub's laughing.
I'm enjoying it, guys. I told you I like Star Citizen drama, and I'm just like, hell yeah, dude, let's do this.
I think people are a little bit more tolerant of bugs if they if the gameplay experience is engaging, it's engaging enough. BG3. Okay. Someone bring up BG3. BG3 is not a bug-free. Holy shit, is it not? It is. It has got some show-stopping bugs in it that will break your game if you're not careful.
Okay.
It is still Game of the Year last year. Like, hands down, there was no question about it. But it was still has problems. It's not perfect. And I think Squadron will itself have those issues where it'll have some showstoppers when CIG releases it. They're going to have to patch out eventually. But if they do it right, it'll be the experience will be engaging enough, and those showstoppers won't be so frequent enough that they'll happen all the time. It'll be as close as they can get to like a polished release. Mm-hmm. And I think Squadron or Star Citizen, when it reaches that point, will have that time, because it's not like we're not testing it right now and getting things. Like CIG's got that advantage where we're finding all the bugs for them before they even reach beta. So by the time they hit beta, it's less of a, hey, we got to find some issues. It's more of a, we'll find the occasional issue that still pops up. We'll chase down some bugs we've been meaning to chase down for a while, but we're mostly sitting here and going to optimize the code. We're going to pull this out, swap this around, change some of the back end, maybe play around with some of the server meshing stuff and see how we can do, see what we can get away with. It's going to be, in my mind, more of an experimental phase where CIG is trying to finally dial in the last little elements that they would be okay with, like economy changes.
Okay. So how long? How long? After 1.0, after Squadron with 1.0.
6 months. 6 months to a year.
That's fair.
Yeah. 6 months to a year.
That's fair.
I think that is also acceleration.
Ambitious.
Yeah. Because that means we're looking at, because like, let's say Squadron 42 comes out in June of 2026. That means 1.0 would be either at the end of 2026 or the middle of 2027. And that is very fast. For everything they have to do, we'd have to see the acceleration. We would absolutely have to see CIG next year hit the gas pedal and not stop. If they can't do that, and they have proven that they cannot do that up until recently, they have to prove that they can hit that gas pedal and go.
Okay.
If they can't, I don't see it happening, but they have to hit that. Next year is big. I think we all agreed on that one. Like next year is the they gotta show. They gotta show up and not be like, oh well, this is technically we still need to do this or that. It's like, no, you block or gone, go. You know.
Fair enough.
Will Squadron 42 be better or worse than Cyberpunk 2077? What's a better game? Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Super Mario Brothers? Both of them are fantasy. Have fantasy elements.
Get him, Paul. Get him.
What? It's a stupid comparison.
I'm done with it. Let's go. Go.
Oh god.
Like
shit.
Or a better example of this would be like, what's better, The Witcher 3 or Final Fantasy 16?
If you were a hot dog, would you eat yourself?
Yeah.
It's a simple question, Norm. All right.
Yeah, Last of Us or Witcher 3, you know. It's
just
like,
say yes and we'll move on, Paul.
You're all wrong. Mist is the better one. That's funny.
I in terms of, if you're at if the spirit is which will have a better release, will Squadron 42 have a better release than Cyberpunk 2077? And the answer is yes. I don't think that CIG can afford. They're not CD Projekt Red. They cannot afford that sort of release, because CD Projekt Red was having problems. So Cyberpunk was having problems that Star Citizen has now. So if CIG in 2 years can't fix those problems they're having now, we're in some serious shit.
Yep.
So, all right. So Hello Games did it, but Hello Games also didn't have like 12 years of alpha, which were publicly tested by players.
Not only that, but they don't have all of the negative publicity that's come with that 12 years. Like that's one of the biggest challenges that they're going to have to overcome. Now, you know what's so interesting is, like, to the question and your point, Paul, kind of to counter Griffin on this. I think Griffin's got a really solid point. Is like, that's what CIG would like to achieve. They want people to play Squadron 42 and immediately shift to Star Citizen, because right now Squadron 42, if you're outside of the community, even looks amazing. Like, they show that thing and you're like, I've got a lot of questions about this game. And if they don't know anything about Star Citizen, which is still pretty niche, although it's got a lot of negative public publicity that people may have only casually, read about, not actually played and experienced. Man, all of us have already had our moments when we log on to Star Citizen and had that first good hit of black tar heroin. When you come up on a space station at the right time on the right server, and you're just like, holy shit, the scale of this game and the way it looks is fucking amazing. You know, or when you get in somebody's ship and you realize it's a fully fleshed out interior and they go into quantum and you're like, are we not on a loading screen? I can just run around your ship. We've already had our holy shit moments.
Mhm.
If they can supply even bug induced holy shit moments from Squadron 42 into Star Citizen, I think they will be at least moderately successful. But I agree with Griffin. They don't want moderately successful. They want those two to be timed out so that it is insanely successful. So that people immediately open their wallets and are like, here's the money, guys. I want more of this. You know,
Chris,
and
this is Chris Roberts' magnum opus. Chris Roberts wants this to go out like a fucking bang. He wants to be remembered for generations as the game developer who did this.
Uh-oh, Paul, you're muted.
Am I muted? I'm not muted.
no, I hear you fine. Unless you're muted in chat.
I don't hear him.
Oh,
Maybe I lost him. Maybe it was me.
it's always you.
It's me. No, it's me.
Yeah.
My thing went mute. That's weird. What made my thing mute? Holy freaking smoke. Sorry.
All right. But yeah.
Interesting.
All right. Let's move on to the next question. We've got a lot of questions.
Oh my God.
I'm going to start skipping some of these questions because some of them are.
It's called engagement.
Yes. Del Ener asks, what advice would you give to players who may not want to experience Pyro's mission content, but or who may want to experience Pyro's mission content, but are uncomfortable with the much greater risk of PvP?
Oh man, I got some advice for you.
I got advice.
Suck it up.
It's not suck it up. It's not suck it up.
Okay.
You want to go first, Griffin?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Griffin.
Okay. So as a PvEer more than PvPer, I PvP when I have to. In other words, if I have an encounter, I have no problem with it, but I lean for PvE. I'm not afraid of Pyro. Pyro is a big amount of space, guys. It's not Stanton. We're talking 3 times the size of it. And even with the increased player count, if we get 500 people, 1,000 people, your engagement, CIG has said this, that their engagement will probably be leaning more toward PvE gang reputation stuff than other players. Now, you will run into other players. Don't get me wrong. And depending on where you're at, but there's a lot of real estate out there. And I don't think that people are going to have as much of the engagement that has been like kind of hyped over the years. You will have it, but I don't think it's going to be, I think it'll be proportional. That's all I can say about it. I don't feel like every time I go into Pyro, someone's going to be sticking me up every time. But there also needs to be preparation and understanding where you're going. You need to be paying attention to what stations you go to, not whether it's a human player or whether it's an NPC. So you need to do your homework when you go into Pyro, I think is the issue. But I think that it's been overblown. Now, I could be wrong, but I think it's been a little bit overblown, that no matter where, as soon as you go in there, you're going to get blown up. Because if CIG does the things that they want to do to create some balance in the game, pirates are also going to be very discretionary about who they go after as well, because they want it to be a good time for themselves and lucrative as well. You're always going to have those folks out there to just shoot at anything that moves, but I think it's going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be as bad as people think it will be or have said it will be, but that's just my opinion.
Nycob.
I don't disagree with any of Griffin's statements, but my chief advice is you got to friend up.
Yeah, there you go.
Strengthen numbers. Strengthen numbers.
Absolutely.
You want to go into Pyro and do PvE shit? Do not be doing that shit solo much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you can't do it solo, but I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it often.
Yep. Smart advice.
The advice I have is from my years of playing DayZ and other survival games, crafting games like this in the past, which is learn how people act. Because if you recognize someone's a player, you can figure out what they are based off of how they react to seeing you. So if you learn how people react around other people when playing the game, you can learn their defensive mechanisms. You can learn some things pretty quickly. Like loitering is often a sign of somebody's going to attack you, because they're trying to figure out who you are and how many people are around you. They're pausing to see, can I get away with it if I pull this trigger? But they're hesitating for a moment because they're trying to analyze the situation to figure out, should I pull the trigger or not? And having good planning, knowing what you're doing, things like don't jump in a straight line, jump around a little bit more. And the easiest answer is, if you're nervous, friend up. Yeah. Just get some friends. Because someone who is solo is going to look at you, and if you're a group of 3 or 4 people, they're going to go, maybe not, maybe not. And if they're in a group of 2 or 3 people, and you have a group of 6, they might go, I don't want to catch that smoke. Let's find somebody else, because they're going to be preying on people who are easier to take down. They don't want to have to deal with the beat down. If you can lash out enough to hit them, to hurt them, they will lose money, because the economy in 4.0 is like that. You know, you're gonna take Polaris's repair costs are bad now. Ooh, Lord, in 4.0, welcome to bankruptcy city. You know, population U. It's you have to learn how to be around these areas. But I'd really hope for people who are PvE focused to try it. Don't just be too afraid to do it, not do it. Try it. Because as long as you try it with some caution, I have found in my experience as somebody who was a lifelong sort of casual gamer, that the thrill of knowing at any point you can get attacked, it sits in the back of your brain. It makes the game fun. It makes the game more enticing. And if you're willing to take that risk, then you become a little bit better in terms of like it's almost like a drug in some cases, because it does hit that like you get the fight or flight reflexes that hit you, and that adrenaline hits you, and and especially in intense situations. And when you come away with it, you have that like relief, and you're like, well, that was really fun. That was engaging. Yep. I enjoyed it. Yep. And that's why people do PvP. It's like those sorts of moments. Some people do it because they like to bully other people, but I think the people you'll see most often who make content around this sort of thing, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that rush, that hit. And it's harder to do.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. It's harder to do. Like a drug. The more you do it, the harder it is to recreate over and over again. So give it a shot in terms of like play it to feel what it's like. But don't go out with what you can't risk. I don't know. This is a lot of advice from me, but try it at least.
I'll put it this way. I got shot on the Stanton side of the gate more than I got shot on the pyro side of the gate. That's all I got to say.
All right. Fastcart asks, serious question. How many 4.x patches are you predicting before 1.0? I am no. We've talked about random possible maybes, like pass the blunt sort of questions too much. We're moving on.
I got one answer real quick. It'll be real quick for Fastcart. Sure. Fastcart, 4.6 to 4.9. That's where we're at. 6 to 9, buddy. 6 to 9.
Oh my goodness.
I was about to say 3/5. I'm gonna make the Fastcart joke. Fastcart ask it. I'm gonna answer it. The answer is 3/5. 3/5 of 4.0. Or 42.
Like that answer.
Oh
god.
I'm gonna 4.20. That's what we're gonna get. Is Fastcart a troll? Yes, Jin.
Yes.
That is. There's another question.
He's most definitely living under a fucking bridge.
Escapa asks, how do you each feel about the ordnance cost rebalance? Tarps and bombs fairly priced? Nightcob, I'll start with you on this one as you're taking a sip.
Yes, I do. I know. Hot take. Hot take. Don't get me wrong. I think it's probably got to get dialed in a little bit. But if you're asking me if I think that it's correct that it is exorbitantly expensive to fire a size 10 torpedo or a
size 12 or whatever it is,
whatever it is. Even a size 9 is like, I think like egregiously expensive for like the Eclipse and stuff like that. I think that's what we need. Like, let's just be real about this. Like, I don't want to go out in the verse and see Polari just out and about doing bounties because it's fun. That is something you pull out for special occasions, and it should stay that way. It should be freaking expensive. It should. You know what the problem with this all is, though, is it's like part of me is like, okay, good, they're ripping the Band-Aid off. They're getting used to the fact that That kind of gameplay is expensive, and it should be expensive. But they haven't inserted the gameplay that it's supposed to be, that you're supposed to pull that stuff out for you.
Yeah.
Or at least not consistently. Like, I look at that kind of stuff as like, dude, the Vandal are raiding portions of Nyx. We've got a global event going on. There's a Vandal fleet. That's the moment when people are like, all right, guys, this is the moment we've been
Break it
paying
out.
org dues for.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
right.
a big like reward game too. Like, if we can take out this Vandal threat, like it's millions, like we stand to make a bunch of money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or like a Xeno threat incursion, where it's like, guys, this is the moment. We've
Yeah.
been waiting for this. This is why the org treasury exists. And why you guys have been building torpedoes or buying torpedoes. We don't have any of that shit yet.
Right.
So we just have this, and it's almost like what we talked about earlier. It's like they're getting us used to the ripping the Band-Aid off, because when they slap that on later, it's not. And not only that, but what a great way though to turn down the server costs of everybody and their mom. Way too many people that own Polarises. Now most people are just not going to take it out that frequently, and it won't be that much of a server cost now that it's like $0.5 per torpedo. So part of me is like, people are like, oh, they nerfed the thing that I just bought. And it's like, you guys shouldn't be taking that out all the fucking time anyway. It's taxing on the servers, and it should be one of those things that you don't pay to take out. It should be I do this rarely. That's me. Hot take probably for some, but I'm down with it.
It needs tweaking, but I agree. I long for the day when I'm with my org, League of Relic Enthusiasts, or with ammo or something like that, where it's like a small group that's holding off a bigger wave, and then the rest of the clan or another guild shows up, and they show up with their javelins and their Idrises and everything just comes in, and it feels like, okay, this is justified. We're barely holding the line, and then someone pops up with a javelin, and I'll be like, thank God there's a javelin here. Not immediately going, damn, that thing's expensive. But you're like, okay, this is justified. Yeah. This thing is showing up is justified in what we're dealing with right now. So,
Yeah. And I don't think there's any argument that the rewards have to match. Like, if I'm launching size 12 torpedoes, there's got to be some kind of payout in the end. Or it's one of those like, hey, I'm paying not to lose the ship.
Yeah.
Like I'm fighting for my life kind of scenario.
Yeah.
One of the two has to be the truth of it,
Either some rep in terms of like you gain rep, or you gain money, or like the Vandal are about to just glass your base. Congratulations. It is now, you either keep your base alive, or the Vandal are going to bomb you to death. To deal with this fleet before everyone's bases in Nyx is just turned to ash.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Griffin?
I'll make mine quick, because I know we're trying to get to these questions. One of my friends, Togi, was talking about this earlier and saying that, we know that there's got to be greater balancing. I think you said this, Nightcob, coming into the game. If I take on an Idris, let's hope that as we're moving toward disable versus destruction, that, like you said, I may launch 8 million in torpedoes or 3 million in torpedoes. But if I go into the cargo hold and I happen to find 7 million, and if I pull the components that equal out to another 22 million, that 3 million I spent is counterbalanced by the reward that I may have gained from it. Or even if it's just the fact that I get to take over the Idris, and I can take it, so there just needs to be balancing there. But these numbers, this is just like the insurance conversation and the reclaim conversation. We knew this stuff was coming. The increases were coming. We've been playing with monopoly money when it comes to, ordinances on our ships and everything all this time. And they're going to be adjusted. I think Nightcob's absolutely right. They'll balance it out a little bit more, but it is supposed to be something that challenges you. And besides that, you won't have that maniac pushing the fire button on your ship without you want to slap them across the head if they launch too many of your size 12s too quickly.
Oh, man.
So
stand the fuck by for that game.
I'm that idiot. I'm
Did
the
you
one.
just fire one of my size 12 torpedoes?
Yeah.
Stand by to die, dude. I will be shooting you out of an airlock.
Well, another great one is I don't think it's going to always be a bajillion dollars to fire a size 12, because there'll be a tier 1 size 12, which would be cheap, and there'll be a tier 5 size 12, which is like your fine china. Which you break out for almost the most ornate of guests. You break out for, because the classic. I'm remembering Firefly, Out of Gas, the episode Out of Gas, where like Mal gets
Such a good show.
he cheapens out
Yeah.
and something breaks on the ship, and so now they don't have any gas, so they have to like that the whole drama is around Mal being cheap, and that's the kind of thing that we want to have in Star Citizen, or at least I do.
Yeah.
I'd love to have
Absolutely.
in Star Citizen is that sort of gameplay of balancing, like, well, do I repair this part now or hold on to it because I don't have enough money to fix it? Or there's an episode of Cowboy Bebop where they get missiles, and so they
You want the struggle. And
I
that's
do.
what's crazy. Yeah. A lot of people don't want the struggle, and that's what blows my mind too. I want the struggle too. I want to scrounge for money to engage in the gameplay that I want, or that I dream of. Like I want to earn the really cool shit. I don't want it just given to me. I don't want to be able to just reclaim my ship and have all my size 9 torpedoes back. I want it to matter when I take a bounty and I get lucky and there's an eclipse and it's soft death and it's got 3 torpedoes on it. And I'm like, holy shit, jackpot.
There you go. Yep.
Like, oh my God, I've got 3 spare torpedoes for my eclipse that I don't have to pay for right now. Like, I want those struggle and victory moments more frequently. And I don't want that just like shit that everything's given to me in this game, or that everything's got a workaround or a cheat code built in. Like, I don't want that. So I'm down with that. Like, make that now, make that sooner.
Someone saying most people want Star Trek. You guys want Firefly, Cowboy Bebop. No, I want Star Trek too. I want DS9, where the first season where O'Brien is trying to hotwire Starfleet equipment into Cardassian stuff, or there's coffee in that nebula. Like there's struggle in Star Trek. There's routinely struggle. That's where the drama comes in. That's where the fun comes in. You know, that's having that sort of experience where, I've been playing a lot of MechWarrior 5, like where you're like, I got to succeed this mission. If I don't, I'm bankrupt. Like I serious bad decisions have led me to this point. Or, there's moments where you're down and you've got 2 credits left and you come through with 2 or 3 big wins. And you're like, suddenly like, I'm on top of the world. I've got 10 billion credits, Those ups and downs are always what games are made out of. So, and we had a raid from Avenger 1. So welcome everyone from Avenger Stream. So appropriate,
big fan.
Appropriate. I say appropriate for the conversation we're having. So
We better hit it up with a really solid next question then.
Hold on.
No pressure, Paul.
Got to deal with somebody.
Oh, fair enough.
Sorry, deal with a regular agitator. So, once and for all, I'd given them a lot of leeway, and they decided to sit in here and start insulting people, calling people. So it's all right. You can find somewhere else to shit on. All right. Move on to the next question. Okay. Are NPCs the next major challenge for CIG?
Oh man.
NPC is an NPC AI.
Yeah.
Are we blending that together? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we know that there's evidence, and we know that there's been factors with the way the server ticks and server times are that has a tremendous impact on how AI perform. But they need to work on that with the networking and get it optimized and get it better. Because when the game does play, when everybody here's experienced that, those days when the AI are on, they're on,
Yeah.
But it's not. There's less days of that and more days of it they're not on. Yeah,
I don't think they're going to be nearly as a challenge, because CIG has worked a lot of AI tech for Squadron. Like, there's a lot of background tech they've worked with Squadron for AI, and they're starting to see them bring them in. I think the real challenge with NPCs is going to be, because CIG right now has this problem where they're like a kid with a new toy. They just want to they have this AI tech, and so they're just throwing it everywhere. So like if you play, like right now, if you go to a bunker mission in Stanton, you fight maybe 10, 15 NPCs, walking around. Pyro missions are like, hey, you got to go clear out this base, and it's like 50. It's like 0 out of 50. Good luck. Like, and it's all ground missions, you know.
And they'll wreck you if you let them.
Yeah.
It's not like the AI of old where you could just run up and like stab them in the face because they couldn't react in time. Like the days of that are almost
over.
Done.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you'll catch them, but you know, you catch 1 or 2 of them, not 50 of them, because they'll pay attention to real quick. So
yeah, and the percentage chance of that has gone down dramatically.
Yeah. So they need to figure out how to balance that. Like, what's the difference between giving this one person as CA or as Keyban said, and it pays you 8,000 UEC. You know, it's like is it willing to, should we give you pittance to go kill, like to go perform a genocide on a small settlement? Like that's sort of the balance issues. It's less of a, can they get AI to work, and more of how much do they want the AI to be Terminators and how much do they want AI to be, you know, brain dead, and that sort of find that balance. And how much do they want to them? Do they want, you know, a small army, or do they want, you know, a town in terms of these sorts of things? So, yeah. What do you think there, Griff? Do you think that's the next major challenge?
Oh yeah, I mentioned about the AI NPC thing. Yes, absolutely.
Night Cobb, did you
Night didn't jump in, I don't think.
Night?
No, because I'll be honest, I thought the question was asking about NPC crew.
I think it's part of it.
I've got a lot of thoughts about NPC crew.
Share them, because I'm sure there's some of them in here as well.
Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it should be a fucking thing.
Yeah.
No, I want them to let the idea of NPC crew die a slow, quiet death, but I don't think that's possible at this point in time. And I've had this argument with a lot of people recently, especially because when they talked about NPC crew being, except, you know, post 1.0, like, I think NPC crew incredibly threatens the multi-crew experience of Star Citizen, and I don't want it on ships. Don't get me wrong, Paul and I have talked. I want NPCs. I don't want to be, don't misunderstand me. I want NPCs. I want the universe to feel alive. I want there to be NPCs talking to each other and having meaningful moments in the verse. But I don't want them replacing human beings on multi-crew ships. I want them to just let that die, the slow death of, guys, you know, it just didn't work out. We couldn't balance it. We couldn't make it work. We couldn't make it be performant on servers, because I'm not sure it ever will be. And I still want there to be a cost to being in a big multi-crew ship, and I want it to be able to get people that do things and stuff like that, and not AI. I want it to be people. And I worry that if we ever allow anybody just even semi-functional, I know human beings are always going to be better than NPC crew. I've heard that argument more than a few times, and I get it. I'm down with it. But at the same time, like, telling you, from a military perspective, you never go into a fight with anything other than overwhelming firepower if you have it available to you. And overwhelming firepower, in my mind, looks like, you got a Polaris? I got a Polaris. You got NPC crew? I got an NPC crew. Would we potentially crew up together, or would we just add 6 other support fighters and, you know, whatever to it instead? And now, instead of 1 or 2 ships with, yes, high performing human players, now I've got 10 ships with overwhelming firepower. That wins the engagement. And it will be the default choice of most people. And I just, as long as we steer away from that, that choice is never even an option. And I'm freaking down with that. I want that. That's me.
This has been your engagement farm. Please do comment down below your feelings on this.
I was gonna say this will be a high performing video for Paul now, because a lot of you are gonna.
I'm already looking at
the
chat
comment section.
There's so many people in chat who are very mad at that idea, and they're like, "Nightcob wants to kill Star Citizen." So I'm like, please, do you think that Nightcob wants to kill Star Citizen? Comment down below. You know.
What you could do is you can also follow Tree0311 or Atira Kel on YouTube.
Yes,
and you can just engage on any pick a video. It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter. And just at me in it, and talk about how upset you are with me.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. Like I said, any engagement is positive engagement.
I am going to slightly back up on you. We'll back you up on this
That's fine.
one because I do think that you're right that there's a risk of NPCs replacing players in terms of meta, and people will what's the term? They'll optimize the fun out of every game. Like that's it's just something
They'll
you
chase
do.
Yeah.
And so CIG needs to walk the line of being able to make it NPCs viable enough to like not be overwhelming, but also make human players more viable, more like better in general, a better option. And the problem is if you make NPCs too good, then they break everything. And I don't see a way where people feel comfortable. I can see this balance is so difficult that I could see CIG just saying, fuck it, we're not going to do it. Because the problem is, and it's not that only solo players, someone said only solo players, only fighters and prospectors. No, there's solo hauling and lots of other things you can do. But the problem is that do you want NPC crew to be competent or to be a pain in the ass? Because the way you balance it is making NPC crew a pain in the ass, like a gigantic pain in the ass. Like you have to keep up their morale. You have to make sure that their toilets are unclogged. You have to make sure that they're getting paid enough. You have to like micromanaging, like babysitting. Do you want to babysit a bunch of NPCs all the time forever and make the interface system so clunky that it's basically useless outside of very simple orders? Because it's a balancing issue. It's a balancing issue about trying to manage, to not have this turn into Eve 2.0 in the sense of just everyone's in these gigantic fleets of these huge ships. So, and as a result, if you don't have that sort of giant pain in the ass gameplay to balance it out, which I think a lot of people won't want to do because people who want to solo they're like somewhat larger ships or almost, and I'm not even talking about capital ships. I'm talking about like your 890, 890 is a capital ship, but like your reclaimers, your Carracks, your ironclads, those sorts of things. I think a lot of those people find the idea of having multi-crew ships boring. And if they think the multi-crew ships are boring and they want to be in control of them, it will probably also be boring if you end up playing The Sims, but through a worse interface. There is so many problems with that. I'm not surprised CIG just sort of said, fuck it, we'll deal with it after 1.0, because it is a significant balancing problem that they're going to have.
Yeah. I'm so glad I said what I said, Paul. Your chat is just like blowing up.
Oh, it's blowing right up.
This is one of the most, I think, honestly, and this is what I talked about with Griffin earlier. This is one of the most cultural divides I think Star Citizen has to face in the future. Is this idea of NPC crew versus no NPC crew, and it's becoming way more of a topic lately than I think it ever has been. And I'm kind of down with it, mainly because I think we really do need to get to a point, and they've given soft answers.
Yes.
And I think they've purposely given soft answers recently to the whole NPC crew thing, where it's like, whoa, you never talked about NPC crew at 1.0, and they gave a really soft and very vague, yeah, that's like an after 1.0 discussion. And that was one of the, I think even the community bit on that and was like, question, you kind of promised that a while ago.
Yeah.
Now you're kind of giving us a soft vagary on that's a post 1.0 and you plan to do it still. That sounds like you haven't figured out how to balance that into this equation. And I think even CIG can see a little bit of the writing on the wall of the challenge, because I totally agree with Paul. The challenge of balancing that is monumental. There is just no, we throw an NPC crew and it'll just work out. That is not going to be how this works. And even if they do decide to go with it, it's going to bring a lot of challenges to the game, because I totally agree with Paul. Everybody optimizes. And yeah, I hate to bring DCS into the game, but bottom line is DCS has a couple of 2-seater aircraft, and they have AI in the back, and that AI is shit in a lot of ways. Jester, although capable in some that's what they call him, by the way, for the F-14 and the F-4. he's a capable AI in some regards and just absolutely dog shit in others. It would behoove to always have a player in the backseat of an F-14 or an F-14 Phantom. But man, I've been in multiplayer servers where if the option is, it's just a simple math equation of, well, I can go up in 2 F4 Phantoms and have moderate AI that I'm potentially successful at accomplishing the mission. And I've got the loadout of not only 1 plane, but 2.
Mm-hmm.
I can accomplish the objective with overwhelming firepower. I'll just have an easier time of it if I've got more spare missiles on board or bombs or whatever, or I go up with a real person and it's like okay, maybe I might be as effective, but it's not a guarantee and I won't have spares. You just start doing like math like that. And that's a small scale. On a larger scale with Star Citizen, when you start talking about capital ships with like 8 people, that really dramatically changes the equation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've already seen that in game right now.
Yeah,
that question is a problem. It's like, would you, for those of you watching, and feel free to comment down below as well and comment in chat, if you were in a situation where you had to do a really hard mission or you had to do PvP or something that was like very difficult for you, would you rather have, and you had 5 people, would you rather 5 people do it in 1 ship or 5 people in 5 different ships to do that same task? I can almost guarantee you the vast majority of people will say 5 ships.
Yeah.
Would you rather do, mining with everybody in 1 mole or in 5 prospectors?
Yeah.
Or 1 reclaimer or 5 like vultures. If you had a goal, which was, and this is, like I said, this isn't just a situation of like combat, it's industry too. People will always optimize away from it. And most people think about this in terms of combat, but if people are optimizing NPC crews through non-combat, it just means that no one has to use, multi-crew as it meant. So,
yeah.
So yeah. All right, that was a good discussion, but I'm going to move on. I think from here on out,
Chat's
a lot
just
of
blowing up with it, and it's like, well, we're moving on, guys.
Yeah. Comment down below if I moved on too fast. I think a lot of this stuff is also a lot of these are going to be repeat.
Don't
questions.
worry, the next question is about the Anvil Paladin and the Redeemer nerf. So don't worry. So stick around, guys.
Yes. Question for Nightcob: why do you hate the Anvil Paladin?
I love it actually.
Farquaadson, which is, I love the name, Farquaadson. It's like Farquaad, but Farquaad with arson. So
okay.
Farquaadson. Anyways, who asks, with the most recent economy changes, do you think they'll ever reach a point where they roll out expensive reward changes? Roll out expensive or roll out expense with reward changes.
Oh.
So Mech Warrior example, QPan also was bringing this up earlier because I mentioned Mech Warrior and he said, yeah, but with Mech Warrior, you almost always have a chance to recover, not like one bad move and you're like, you're financially, what's the quote? I'll never financially recover from this, sort of situation. It does happen, but you always have an option. There's always like a gameplay in there. It's usually a series of bad decisions. And so I think the question is asking, do you think we'll ever reach a point where you have this is how much money you're going to put in and this is how much you're going to get out? Sort of like a guaranteed, you will, if you spend this amount of money, so you'll get more money afterwards. So like a sliding scale. In Mech Warrior, you can like gamble by saying, hey, I'm going to put some money into my repair costs so that if going in, you expect to get, it's going to be a rough mission. You can, max out your repair costs. So it'll actually, the contract will actually pay for some repair automatically. So you don't have to worry about it. And anything that's left over, you get for yourself. So you don't have to pay it, but it mitigates some of that process. Or you just go straight in. So effectively with this one, it's more like, it's going to cost you this much. Do you get a specific reward, guaranteed for a sliding scale? So you always guarantee that you're going to make some money.
I'm going to leave this one to Nightcop.
Guys, victory never tastes sweet if there is no loss. All right. Like
Mhm.
sometimes you gotta lose. And sometimes it's okay to lose because when you win, it tastes that much sweeter.
Just better.
If
Mhm.
yeah, like so I'm personally I don't like the idea of, you know, guaranteed return on investment. I think that's the overall phrase.
He actually has
Yeah.
he has a clarification here. He says when they make changes to cost/money resource to money resource sync, they release it and then patch and higher rewards on the follow-on patch. So I think
It's
it's
getting
I'm super confused, but I'm
Yeah,
three
it's
beers in. You guys
complicated
want to help
now.
me out?
Yeah, it's getting complicated.
I don't. Maybe he's saying like, do you think they'll increase the amount of money you get after they increase the amount of cost? So basically, like they're gonna change the
Will they
formulas.
balance it?
Oh, well, so they've said they're
Yeah.
yeah. So they've said they're
Yeah.
doing that. That's in the latest patch notes. They're going for that. Like they are. That is the next step.
Yeah.
If that's the question, and I do fully believe that they will do that. I get it. My only uh, reservation on what they're doing right now, based on the money, is kind of the scale. I don't know how many people have played Elite Dangerous, but that game
Mhm.
seems to run in the millions,
Yep.
of credit values and stuff like that. And when you have like a bank account that's just like this just incredible number of or amount of commas, for an overall value that just doesn't mean much to you anymore. But everything costs like things with commas, then it's kind of weird. You know what I mean? It just feels weird in terms of scale. Uh, Whereas I like the idea that they'll keep the scale kind of like, hey, I just made 2 million credits. That feels like a lot of money, but it's all about everything has to be proportionate on that scale. That's me. You know what? I'm just spitting out a lot of bullshit.
Revenue versus profit. You make you make 7 million in revenue, but like the cost of operations means you got like 100K afterwards. That kind of thing.
Yeah. I just it needs to find its balance so that unlike ED, it's more tangible the feel of a victory with regards to AUEC and the feel of a cost that makes sense to you and that feels like a value that I don't know just jives with the human brain because I think ED did it wrong in the sense of just like God like the values of money are just so astronomically large that you start working instead of like the $20 is a lot of money. It's like well $20 is fucking the
Nothing.
change in my pocket. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the change in my pocket. You don't want that to be 20,000 AUEC is the change in my pocket, whereas like 6,450,000 is like day to day currency. You kind of get where I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there, like yeah, okay.
Elite Dangerous had the unique problem that they had major inflation after they were no longer able to wipe. Like they had some major bugs that they had to patch out, but at that point people had made billions, which is why they added one of the reasons why they added engineering and that sort of thing because they needed to find a way of engaging player base beyond just here's a way to make more money. I'm sure they were always planning on doing that, but that became much more of an impact compared to money.
Yeah.
Anyways, the other question he also has a statement. Also for Night Cobb, awesome hat, man. Is that same thing? So.
I feel bad, man. I have not flown the Apache in a long time, but I'm still rocking the hat.
So General Rendar asks, what do you all think about tier 3 med beds being respawn points? Permanent? Does it kill medical gameplay? Let me put my tree 0311 hat on here because I actually have an answer for this. You're not going to want to die. And it sounds like I just said skill issue, but it's not. It's not. What it means is you're going to down a lot more than you're going to die. And death is going to have a lot more of a pain in terms of your IVS score, your imprint viability score, your IVS, your imprint viability score, which is sort of like your hard HP. You have your soft HP, which is your current health of you existing. You have a hard HP, which will dwindle down or go up depending on actions you take. Which will be your character death. And that action will mean that it'll be a lot better to just get rescued than it is to just do the backspace express.
Yep.
I'm sure there'll still be some of those, but that'll be a meta game sort of balance issue. And there'll be a lot more than just, hey, we're going to, I need to fight in this fight, or I'm down. I'm just going to backspace and go back and get stuff and come back in. I don't think that's the loop they want to do, because one of the other things that they've kind of hinted at with things, Tree will always say this, and I often say this, which is lore equals gameplay. A lot of the lore stories they tell are told through the perspective of the writers have been told by the developers what they're doing, and the writers have to make it justified in the game. They have to justify why this thing exists in game through story. And one of the ones they did when they brought Jumptown back, they did a story about this fixer. I believe it was the what's his name from Grimhex, the guy who had the hologram, Ruto. It was Ruto,
Ruto.
Gets a message from a guy who's like, "Hey, I've got an in on this fix in Jumptown. If you want me, but I just need some cover. Could you help me out here with this?" And he's like, "I don't do business with people who ghost themselves in the middle of an operation so they don't get caught." And he's just like, "Well, it was just a bad time, It was I was getting cornered, and it was my only way out was to end game so I could regen somewhere else." And he's like, "Oh, okay, all's fair in love and war." And then the chat stops, and then it's him, it's Rudo calling a bounty hunter and saying, "Here's where he's going to be." Basically, like, which was to me implying the sort of mechanics they're looking at are, you backspace a lot, you're going to lose a lot of reputation. Because you're seen as taking the coward's way out, or taking being more complicated. You're compromising because you're leaving evidence behind. So any sort of actions, or you're making things more complicated than they need to be too loud, or not loud enough, whatever. So I think there are going to be some actual tangible costs beyond just line go down, where other lines go down as well. Multiple lines go down if you decide to backspace rather than wait to get healed. But sorry, someone responds. I don't think there's an in-game penalty you can come up with that will make me stare at a screen for more than 5 minutes waiting to be rescued or downed. Playing on my phone ain't playing Star Citizen. Well, that's the other thing. It's not just, oh, I'm downed. That's where I get into the skill issue. If you're alone for 5 minutes because you're downed, you're an idiot. That's just that simple. Like, get good, get better, bring friends. Or what?
We're having fun now.
I
I like it.
Yeah,
I like
boy.
it. You thought I generated some shit.
What?
Paul's over here like, get it.
What? It's like if you're staring at a screen where you have no way of reviving yourself in a game where they're going to try to make you more revivable. Skill issue. Like, bring friends, or hire an NPC, because we know NPCs can revive players and revive each other. There'll be ways of reviving. Like, yeah.
Paul, I'm with you in so many ways. I really am.
You're about to hit me saying no.
No. Here's the thing. I'm also with that person in their take, right? Because I agree with them that right now, current state of the game, there's just there's nothing.
Yeah.
And it's 20, 30 minutes. Maybe you get somebody that knows how to get to you wherever you are. Maybe you don't. Maybe an NPC got a lucky shot on you, and you're just now pissed and sitting there bleeding out, for the next hour and a half. And you don't want your gameplay to be sitting there for 15 minutes while you watch the screen do the black and the back and all that kind of shit or whatever. At the same time, there's got to be something to this loss. And it can't just be gear. It's got to be something. I'm with you. There's got to be something more. Again, the victory will not taste as sweet if there's not loss for this. And there's got to be something to backstop us as players from just hitting the reset button in a game like this. That's what they've been building this whole time. They do not want to build the average MMO where it's just like, I backspace and I'm back with all of my gear, and maybe I'm just back in town and there's no real consequence to it. If you're looking for that type of game, I'm sorry, you've come to the wrong place. And if it's time for you to go, hey, appreciate you supporting for as long as you did.
Yeah.
I would say
Well-
I'm sorry to see you leave, but I'm not that sorry to see you leave. But
The other thing is that I think a lot of people are saying, well, bugs and all these things, like
Yeah.
but none of the stuff I just said earlier is in the game yet either. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about the
Right,
future. And the
later.
question is, what do you think about tier 3 med beds and respawn modules? Permanent, does it kill medical gameplay? And I think I'm taking the question as meaning in the future. And the answer is no, I don't think it kills medical gameplay in the future. Does it kill medical gameplay now? Well, yeah, because there's no medical gameplay.
Exactly.
You know, there's nothing there yet. If we're talking about this in the future, these are the things that have to happen in the future. Either NPCs being able to call in to rescue you, having friends to be able to help you. I'm not talking about like the 7-hour medical beacon for someone to show up and just fuck with you at the end. We're talking about like end game sort of questions,
Right.
you know, because
Yeah,
otherwise there has to be some consequences for you just backspacing out of combat because
yeah, to be clear, I don't care about Death of a Spaceman in terms of how they briefed it because that can change. I just care. My only thing is I need there to be some kind of consequence, like you said, Paul.
Yeah.
There's got to be a consequence to me hitting backspace and cheating my way out of this and spawning. Like, there's got to be something tangible that a price to be paid that is meaningful and not just like 10,000 AUEC worth of credits to restock the tier 3 medbed on whatever ship or whatever it is. Like there's got to be something tangible that makes me want to encourage the style of gameplay of medical rescue, because I think that's a cool gameplay loop and I would really like it to be reinforced by something. But I will not argue that there is a big problem with the infrastructure of that right now, with the fact that there is just like 100 player servers. How many people are running med beacons on that? Maybe 1 to 5 if you're lucky. And how many of them are good at it and actually have the equipment and or the experience with knowing how to dodge turrets for a base that's hostile to them in the moment and various other knowing how to deal with variables and going to rescue somebody. If they don't know those things, then you're going to sit there and you're going to wait for 45 minutes, and that's not good gameplay for you. So I'm not arguing that the infrastructure right now does not support that. But we talked earlier about this. There's this whole push, right, to getting us used to what the game is going to be. And part of it needs to be them pushing us to start getting used to the way this game is trending is eventually, like, they're going to encourage medical gameplay. And they're going to encourage it. And one of the ways that they're going to have to encourage it is there's going to have to be a price to be paid somewhere to encourage you to want to put out a med beacon and not just hit backspace.
because I
don't know what it is.
There needs to be enough gameplay to justify people playing a medic. If there's not enough gameplay to justify people playing a medic, then they won't exist.
Exactly.
And that's the key with that kind of thing.
Yeah, or they give it up and they say fuck it on medical gameplay.
Yeah,
like at least the rich, one of the two, but they need one, so they got to kind of pick a road to go down.
I was going to say also, they've obviously invested energy and development into the idea of medical gameplay. I mean, look at how many ships have been introduced, vehicles introduced recently with medical. There are people who've been doing medical because they just enjoy doing it on the side, but there will be the built-in incentives out there. Just like we've been playing with Mickey Mouse money doing this other stuff, believe me, medical numbers are going to change too. And it will be a lucrative career. For those of you who played Star Wars Galaxies, there were people who did nothing but medical stuff and they were loaded because people needed to be taken care of. So we don't even have the Endeavor and other ships yet. We don't have the Apollo series yet. So medical is going to be important. I'm not too worried about it. Somewhere or other, them doing something that's going to kill that whole gameplay loop.
Yeah, and there'll be something to the effect of a quick response with NPCs that CIG will build in, because like they'll have a response where your reputation matters, and if you're friends with, say, the Citizens for Prosperity, you're downed and you have nobody else, you can hit the big panic button, and then CIG will spawn in a Citizens for Prosperity rescue team, which will show up and medic you up because you have a good reputation with them, and they might take a little bit of money later. Stuff like that. There'll be some pain breaks where like there'll be you in a bad position, but there should be enough like cushion where you're not just entirely screwed. That's why I'm saying if you're staring at a screen for 5 minutes, then you fucked up. There's like just something wrong. You've done something awful. I don't think anyone should ever be staring at your dead screen for 5 minutes. That's not fun. And I get that was the intention of it, but like, I don't think CIG is stupid enough to think that's a viable gameplay loop. I think they'll find ways around it, but there's going to be consequences. That's it has to be. So, all right. Next question comes from okay, I'm gonna because that's about NPCs we already talked about.
Pick another spicy one, man.
I'm still sticking with skill issue, man. Just there's sometimes you just gotta say skill issue. That's why I hope CIG does that more often when it comes to these questions. Like, but skill issue. Like, just play a game. They used to do that a couple times. Whenever they've said skill issue when someone complains about something, I'm just like, thank you. Apollonaut asks, who's on last show, by the way? Or it was on last show. What impact do you foresee the massive increases in missile costs in 4.0 in both PvE and PvP? I think we already talked about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People won't pull the trigger as much. I think that's the easy answer. But also, they'll find a way. I don't think we're going to see missiles and torpedoes cost an arm and a leg forever. They'll find a middle ground. I also think they'll do it dynamically. So missiles will cost less in Stanton versus Pyro. So if you want to go out and do your fun PvP actions, get prepared to pay the price in Pyro versus Stanton.
Don't you like that though? Like, don't you like the idea of a couple of murder hobos, two murder hobos that have somehow gotten their hands on a Polaris now, like have to like, damn it, man. Like it's like, I'm not going to go out in a Polaris and camp a station. Like, and at the very least, you don't have to worry about that problem because of what they did with the cost of torpedoes. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes some things make sense out loud in my head. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Omega asks, question: will Astro accept his love for the Redeemer if it's revealed that Cal Mason's favorite ship? No. That's grounds for divorce. I'm surprised no one's asked any questions about about Paladin. We're already like an hour, 2 hours in, so I'm just going to start skipping some of these questions because we have a lot of questions. Yeah, some of these.
Well, Paul figures out a question. You guys type a 1 in chat though. If all things considered, you think the Paladin is a good-looking ship? Because I think it looks like it's inheriting that design language of the dropship from Aliens in an even better way than the Valkyrie did, and it's just like pure sex. I know it's got a lot of controversy around it, but man, I am down with the look of that ship. Yeah. Okay, we got some mixed reviews. I got a lot of ones coming up. Yeah,
it looks like a mean son of a bitch. Like
yes.
It looks like the thing it's supposed to be, like a brick it's flying at your head. Like you know.
Yeah. I'm here for it.
It is here to destroy you or cause you to surrender. Like that's what it feels like. And it's like the Perseus. Like the Perseus is perfectly designed because it just looks mean. Even though it's not that big, it looks mean. It's the same thing. Yeah. The Paladin looks mean.
Just like the F-14 Tomcat, man, just pure sex. You're just like, God, I don't know if that ship's that good, that plane's that good, but man, it looks good.
Yeah, I was right. A lot of these questions are kind of questions about like crafting, multi-crew, stuff we've already talked about. So, yep. A lot of it is just the same questions about crafting and stuff like that. We've already answered.
Okay.
This is Paul's cue that he's about tired of y'all's bullshit.
Well, no, I mean, a lot of them are variations. Like, for instance, this question was,
I'm being hyperbolic. I'm sure that's not
like
really the case.
if you could have a ship built from any company in the game, what would it be? And would have built it? That's a little different. That's more of a standard question. I'm not going to answer that question because it's answered every class asked every session.
That's right. Class is in session.
My brain went back into teacher mode.
Yeah.
And you know, if crafting and base building is out, how long do you think they'll have to have science get in game for crafting schematics? Those sorts of questions.
Hey, I got a question if you're having trouble finding one, and it's actually for Griffin, if you don't mind.
Sure.
All right, Griffin.
Yep.
And actually, this is a good one for you too, Paul. You guys do a lot of shows around ships, ship rolls, ship sales, building your fleet and stuff like that. And I'm kind of one of those notoriously, I have a starter pack. That's it.
Smart.
I like to
Yeah.
I like to earn my ships in game and shit like that. And it, like, for me, the progression of the ship is one of the chief modes of gameplay. I see that they are starting to gradually transition to that more and more. Like, they're leaning further into that. And at the same time that they're leaning further into that, their sales are going down. And people are coming to that realization of, I can just buy ships in game. I can buy more ships in game. And don't get me wrong, they have some, I'm not going to say scummy, but they have some marketing tactics, like the F8 sales, the F7A overdrive event, and all that kind of stuff to kind of stem the tide. Do you think that we are hitting that inflection point of one of the primary ways to play this game still now is going to be more in game? Like, they're actually, whether intentionally or incidentally, like, encouraging more in game purchases with regards to ships and the associated gameplay of trying to earn your stuff.
I don't think they're intentionally doing it.
Yeah.
That's fair. Do you think we're at that inflection point, though, where, like, everybody's going to start to do more in-game stuff rather than, because I would argue up until at least recently, or maybe we're at the tail end of it, most people have bought their ships in game in order to achieve the gameplay that they want. And I'm starting to see a trend where everybody's starting to lean in my direction.
I think that in the beginning, in the early days, the only way to get ships was to purchase them, right? There was no rentals. There was no going to the ship deal. You had to buy them if you were interested in them. And then over time, we started getting them where you could rent, and then you could purchase in game. We were talking about this earlier too. The financials on this are really interesting because the last year, the numbers have gone down of new players who've come into the game. So it's very difficult to take the historical data of what happened this last year with the numbers for me, because I need to see a trend. 1 year is not enough for a trend. People are saying, oh, they've made less money this year, but we've been here before where it goes down. Then all of a sudden, boom, it blows up at the end. I'm concerned about CIG bringing in the amount of money they need to run the company. If they happen to make an extra 5 million that year or 15 million, that's great. But as long as they have enough money to run the company, I'm okay with that. So I think the fluctuations are going to happen. In relation to people saying, hey, I don't have to spend money, I can buy the ship in game. That's also been dependent upon the economy in the game too, because as you know, we just had that recent ship amount increase, and some people lost their minds when those prices went up. And it's about the in-game prices that went up. So if it's still easy for people to make money, whether that be through exploit or whether that this be through it's just a short amount of time, then they're going to lean that way. But if that Idris that you want all of a sudden is, I'm picking a random number, 800 million, there may be some people who will still say, to grind for that, I'm not doing it. They'll put the money up. So it's hard for me to say because of the fluctuation of in-game money. And with the economy changing now, I don't know what it's going to cost to buy those ships, because I'm going to assume that there's going to be another increase on prices of ships in-game. That number that we've got right now is going to change again. And so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that people are shifting because of that. I think there are, but will say this. I'd have talked to more people now who are willing to earn their ships in game. And it's not because of money. They want that challenge of doing that.
Yeah.
They're
encouraging the gameplay loop more.
They want that. They want that challenge.
I think in general, ship purchasing is down, mostly as a consequence of where we are currently in development. I think if CIG released more patches, they would sell more ships.
There are more ships.
I have this theory, which I think is backed up by a lot of the data, that CIG sells ships when they release patches.
Yeah,
they make money when they release content. Last year, they released 7 patches. I want to say a lot. Like the beginning of the year, they didn't release a lot, but then they hit September. They released like 320 in September, 321 in like October, and then in like November it was 322. So they released like 3 patches within 6 months, and before that they had released 2. So it was like 5 patches. It was one of the biggest years for numbered patches, and it just so happens to also be the biggest year we've ever had in terms of funding. It's like, I don't think those 2 are mutually exclusive. I think that's the reason why, is because they had content. People were playing. People were coming back in. Even with, because last year was 318, right? Even with the 318 issue, 318, 319 still did pretty well.
Yep.
So I think, but I also think that there's a lot more people who are seeing where CIG is their vision of Star Citizen 1.0, and they're like, I don't want this Polaris anymore. I don't want this Javelin anymore. So, and you can see that there's a longer time between the sale of a ship, of a capital ship, and when it's actually fully sold out. All of the credits are usually sold out instantly, but the War Bond stuff is lasting days for selling out. So,
Can I ask a follow-on?
Sure.
What do you think happens if they ever allow us to sell back purchased in-game ships?
Like sell in game?
Yeah, sell it back in game for let's just, and obviously, like, I don't think you'll ever get like full price back, but like, imagine if it makes a significant enough dent that you could trade it and buy another new ship. Do you think that hurts their sales?
Yeah, but I also don't think they'll do it.
You
Because
don't think so?
it ruins the economy. Because like the problem is now what people will do is, instead of buying credits on the store, they'll just buy a ship in the store and then sell it for cash, so they can get a better exchange rate.
Oh man,
money laundering.
Yep. Basically, yep.
Money laundering credits in game.
Isn't that like a horrible thing, though? Don't you think? Like,
Yeah.
I just always look at it as like,
I hate the fact that you can buy credits on the store. It's a stupid freaking thing.
Man.
And I hope they get rid of it. Quietly get rid of it. That's my, your AI thing being like, hey, I hope they quietly get rid of it.
I don't want them to quietly get rid of AI. At least not
AI crew.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
It's dumb. I think they make more money off of the releasing Squadron 42. Release patches and release Squadron 42. They'll if Squadron 42 is half as good as that prologue was making it out to be, in terms of like engaging writing and storytelling, and at least maybe cut down, maybe not 15-minute trailers every other event in game, but it's Chris Roberts' game, so who knows. But if it's half as good as it seems to be hyping itself up to be, Squad 42 will make millions. So like, I firmly believe that if CIG manages to nail Squadron 42, they'll make $100 million in a week. It's not that difficult. I've also heard some things that I am not going to repeat, because this is one of those things where it's a source I trust, but it's a source who is telling me from a source they know, so it's like third person. But I heard some things about what they're planning on doing that when they told me, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, they may actually pull this off. So it's interesting about like Squadron 42's release specifically. They're being a little bit smarter about Squadron 42's release than I thought they were going to be, which makes me go, oh yeah. As Serious Fun points out, Space Marine 2 sold 4.5 million units so far. But Space Marine 2 was also sold on PC and consoles. I don't think you're going to see that levels. How much did BO or Baldur's Gate 3?
I don't know.
Checking real quick. They made 650 million on PC last year.
Wow.
And I think CIG has the possibility of having a Baldur's Gate 3 level release with Squadron. And I think that's the key. If they want to make money, release games. They make money back.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you on that. I was just curious. It's things I think about sometimes when I'm playing the game, and there's a lot of drama behind the ship store and all that kind of stuff, and you start asking yourself questions like, man, why can't I sell the ships in game that I've purchased in game? I get why you'll never be able to sell the ships you've purchased out of game. That makes sense. But like, I buy a Scorpius in game and I'm tired of the Scorpius, or it was not what I wanted it to be. Like, in my head, there should exist a version of the game where it's like, okay, I didn't like the Scorpius. Whoops. Let me sell it back. I won't get full money back, but I mean, I'll get some AUEC back, and then that could go toward the ship that I really did want. Meantime, instead of it just sitting in my hangar forever and ever and ever. But I think the insurance system kind of solves that to some regard, but I don't know. We'll have to see.
All right. I've narrowed down some questions because there's like 3 main reoccurring questions. One is about blueprints. And so I picked this one. With access to most blueprints being rep-gated with guilds, how do you see players who want to be full-time crafters gaining access to weapon blueprints, for example? Will they have to spend a lot of time being carried through combat missions?
Can you ask that question one more time? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So the question is basically, if you want to be a gunsmith, but you just want to make guns because guns are cool or whatever, but you don't want to actually shoot the guns, but the only way you can get access to make the gun is to go shoot the guns. Do they have to just get carried through the shooting of the guns rather than the crafting?
There's an assumption there. Why do you assume that that's the only way to get that blueprint?
Well, I think they talked about this, right? They talked about some blueprints are generated on data pads in the last SCL that you could sell to another player.
You could sell them, right?
Yeah, and I hope they stick with that program because I agree. I don't like the idea of. I would just hate it if it's like, hey, I really want a Mark 7. I don't want to craft. That's just a me thing. Not knocking crafting. It's just not my game. Right. But I want a Mark II F7A. And I would hate the idea that the way I've got to earn that is, doing some kind of mining org mission or something. I'm not saying that's how they would do it. That doesn't make any sense. But just the same, right? Like, but I love the idea of, dude, I'm doing some bounties or I'm building some rep with this company and this person that's wanting to craft, hardcore military industrial stuff that is only accessible via the rep that I am earning with the CDF or whatever. And now I've got the right blueprint for them. And they're like, I want that blueprint. And I'm like, cool, you're going to pay me for it. And then I'm going to use that money, or we're going to strike a deal and you're going to be building the first thing off the line for me. Whatever.
Or you're going to say, I got a guy, right? I got a guy.
Yeah. I got a guy.
I know who I get that stuff from.
Yeah.
I'm of that. Like
Denzel Washington from Two Guns. I like it. Yeah, I know a guy.
Right.
That's my perspective as well. It's like, I want to be a crafter. I don't necessarily want to be only a crafter, but I want to like find a niche and enjoy crafting it because I want to be the guy who you're like, someone goes, hey, there's this really weird, I don't know, like we find a recipe for, whiskey, this like unique whiskey recipe. I have no value for this, but Paul could use it because he crafts that stuff. And some gives it to me, or I give them a version and I can use that to like craft my own this whiskey and then sell that whiskey back to NPCs to make enough money so I can keep doing other things, that sort of thing. Cause like, I guarantee you, if somebody is a hardcore PvPer or a hardcore like combat player, they're probably not a crafter. Nightcob is not going to be sitting there in front of a fabricator tweaking dials and knobs. He's going in there
He's not my game.
He's gonna be raiding a caterpillar and find a data pad for a unique Castak shotgun, and he'll be like, Paul would like this, and it'll come to me and be like, hey Paul, what do you want for this blueprint for Castak shotgun or something? Those people exist, and they will have to. That's why I love the crafting system that CIG has built, because it encourages people who normally are just sweaty combat focused, straight up, just I don't know who I am, I don't know where I am, all I know is I must kill, kind of players, and make them go talk to like fluffy crafters. And
the Bobs, as they would call them.
Yeah. You just go to the you go to the because it feels very cinematic, Every badass action hero has their cue, or the guy who makes the stuff, and they'd be like, hey, who's the guy like the weapons dealer in John Smith in John Wick.
John Wick.
John Wick. Yeah. Oh, it's the same thing we call for the. Well, it's not it's not just the tailor. It's the guy that's the wine expert.
Yeah, the wine
Starts
expert.
with S.
Yeah.
Starts with S.
Like, you know,
Salmari.
Yeah, like that sort of character. Everyone wants to have that, or the collector from Guardians of the Galaxy, like the guy who has the stuff.
Sommelier. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
You know,
Yep.
that sort of thing, and that's very cinematic to have those people who are doing those things, and it works with sort of player interaction because not everyone's going to be able to do everything. I hate that in crafting sims where, you know, the goal is to basically just solo grind until you have the recipe for what you need instead of making people who are good at what they do or enjoy what they do focus on that. And I love that's how they're balancing that. It feels really right. So, you know. All right. Do you have any thing on that, Griffin, about like blueprints, stuff like that? Okay.
Nope. I'm good.
Okay. So the other one was, okay, that was the one we already talked about.
Yeah, Chris Christopherson and Blade. That's a good character.
Gosh, there's a lot of. Okay, this is the other one. Do you think engineering will come in 4.0.x patch or 4.1? Basically, the stuff that was cut from 4.0. When do you think it's going to come in?
Engineering. What
engineering, and you know, like all
fire
that, the fire and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That 4.1. I mean, if they get it, that'd be great. But I'm not sweating that until they get stuff stable and everything. That's just me. I'm looking forward to it. Don't get me wrong. Life support and all that stuff, but I don't know. There's so many ships that don't have engineering built into them yet, too.
Oh, yes. The elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There was one other one that I really wanted to. Okay, so there's three more that I want to ask because they're all pretty good. One is, are armor restrictions in pilot seats still a thing, and should it be a thing?
Yeah,
I don't think.
I think like wearing armor in the heavy armor in the flight suit in the cockpit.
All of us are going to say yes. This is the crowd that likes restrictions. So, you know, I firmly believe there should be an armor set for every type of profession. Every profession should have at least one, if not multiple, armor sets. I think if you want to be a fighter pilot, you should have a set that you take, which allows for maximum survival in your job. If you're a bounty hunter, you have an armor set that has the maximum amount for advantages for catching bounties. There should always be a meta set that you use because that's what's designed for your job, but it should have a downsides that it's not as protective or whatever. It has some negative aspects that isn't perfect for everything. When everyone can just wear heavy armor and climb into an arrow, that's a problem. There needs to be some restrictions. So, back up.
Hard agree.
Okay. All right. The last two were, will the color hex editor for ships come to Star Citizen? That was the famous, they showed off how they make skins where they have this sort of hex code editor.
Yep. Tracking.
I was making sure Griffin knew. I didn't know if it was.
Should the hex color?
Is it going to come in? Do you think?
They're talking about
will
hex
it
codes.
come in?
Yeah, the hex
codes. Yeah, I've always kind of wondered about, you know, with them putting out all these paints and everything. I think they will. The question just be how they implement it, because people are going to want something more than just. I mean, CIG showed us that they want to be able to do logos and all this other stuff, and I think even at SitCon they showed this whole thing with even people matching their clothes with their ships and logos and all that stuff. So yeah, it's coming. It's going to come.
I firmly hope that CIG adopts what a lot of other MMOs in similar genre have already done. MechWarrior Online, which is not really technically an MMO, but it kind of works as a free-to-play action game. But Warframe does this too. What they do is they make the skins, you have palettes. So they're like templates. So you buy a skin, it comes with colors for the skin, but you can also pull those colors out and put other colors in. So you buy let's just use like Marpat camo, right? You buy Marpat camo to put on your ship, and it has 3 colors: primary, secondary, tertiary. It's like, brown, green, and black, or whatever unique special colors, like dirt red or dirt brown, void black, and heather or vomit green, whatever they call the colors. But you can swap it out, the colors, for orange, purple, and pink if you want to, if you have those colors, because that allows for them to still preserve what they currently have with the ship skins, because now they're just palettes with patterns with palettes that come with them, and then you can just swap those out individually. That way they can sell palettes, so they can still sell them in sort of smaller or bundles. They can still sell skins that come with some of these colors, and then they can also allow those to be unlocked in game. So that way, everyone has a basic palette that they work with. And if you want a crazy, fancy, schmancy one, you might have to like grind up to work for custom Cousin Crows, custom craft, like, do some rep grinding with them. And now suddenly you unlock the reflective paints, the shiny paints or something like that.
Pearlescent.
Yeah, pearlescent. Or you find them. Like you find a recipe for them on like in a blueprint, and then you can go make it yourself. So that's sort of idea. There's enough way to do it that they can still preserve their current method while also allowing for gameplay and for sales. So, but yeah. All right. And the last question was, where are you? Okay. So this was a funny one. I think it's funny. I know enough about Serious Fun to know this is not funny. I think Serious Fun is being very serious. Who asks, imagine a whiteboard somewhere in the bowels of Manchester's Goodyard with a 10-year plan for CIG. What is coming for us in 4.0 that isn't server meshing, that will be a harbinger for the future? What we see 4.0 now? What is that's not server meshing? What is in 4.0 now that is sort of like a hint towards the future of the game? I can start off.
Okay, go ahead.
The contested zone.
Okay.
We know they're going to do the bowels, the depths of Area 18. We're going to see dungeons. That's what these are. They're dungeons. They're PvP dungeons, but they're dungeons. We'll have some that'll be PvE, some will be mixed, that kind of stuff. But yeah, dungeons. We're going to start to see these sorts of handcrafted or maybe procedurally generated locations, which have specific rewards at the end that are kind of loot dungeons. So.
Okay.
What do you think, Griffin?
I was going to go back to what we already know about, which I think that maybe we got a better taste of from CitizenCon, which was the people building out their, not habs, what's the word I'm looking for? Settlements. The level that they showed us with, everybody was talking about building the big space stations. But I think that once people start looking at when they want to start building their location where their home is or where their small org is, the amount of work and effort and time that's going to go into that is going to become much bigger, and people are going to get really excited about it. And I'm saying that based upon, I was blown away by the excitement that people had about decorating their freaking hangar, right? I mean, people were going ape because they couldn't put their rifle down on a table and stuff. And people have all this flair. I think people are really going to get into the idea of customizing their homes and spending a lot of effort. If they're a military group, they're going to have their place laid out in a very nice way. That underground, that hangar facility that they can build for themselves. I think that that's just going to be a really big thing. And after CIG talked this week about what is it going to take to, how those sites are seen on servers, how they're protected, all that is going to become a huge gameplay loop in the game. I think way more than just a little, building my house and that's it. I think people are going to really value where they build out and build their homes or their organizations at.
Nycob?
We talked about it earlier. I really think that the sleeper of 4.0 and server meshing is the economy. And commodities and how that's going to dramatically change the way we played Star Citizen 4, and it's going to dramatically enhance and lay that foundational groundwork where Star Citizen is going. I think I just don't think enough people have paid attention to the way the commodities are changing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you for joining us for this 2-hour and 15-minute question session. By the way, I skipped like half the questions because there are legitimately, and the last question was asked because I turned off the bot was asked an hour and a half ago.
Oh my God. I
stopped it at an hour and a half ago, and there was still more questions we could get through. People were absolutely Nycob hitting that button. He hit that controversy button. Everyone has asked questions.
Got them all fired up.
I'm gonna have to continue to be controversial. I look forward to the bonfire that is going to be these comments about me being condescending and a dick by saying get good.
Dude, I'm telling you, just hit the first comment that says something like that and just be like, just point at me, just at me on it.
No,
like, further requests to this guy.
I might just respond, get good, if someone says that in chat, in the comments, you know.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Why don't, Escape, the last question asked to me, Escape asked, why don't you love us, Paul? Skill issue. That's why I don't love you. Skill issue. With that, thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check out Armchair Admirals and Generals on the twitch.tv/tree0311 and youtube.com/tree011 where you can find Nycob. And also check out Soul Citizens podcast tomorrow. Soul Voices today. I always get Soul Talk.
That's gone. Yeah, Soul Voices is gone. So we're on tomorrow. Soul Citizens tomorrow.
Soul Citizens tomorrow. But like check that out tomorrow or later today or right now if you're watching this later. And then of course you also check out Soul Talk and Soul Voices on Thursdays and Saturdays. And if you enjoyed this, you want to join us for these epic long Q&A sessions, twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPub.
Otherwise known as Captain's Table After Dark.
Yes. I should start calling it that. Instead of the Q&A, just the After Dark section, you know. We just take off the blinders. We do these on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Not GMT. I want to keep saying GMT, but it's GMT. It's not probably right, but you know, around 9 p.m. GMT. I think it's 9 p.m. British time. UTC. Thank you. Serious fun. UTC. And if you have any questions, if you have any of your own comments, your own statements about anything we said, read them down in the comments below. I do try to read all of them, even the mean ones. And if you did enjoy this, hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and hit that bell icon to be notified when these release. Thank you for watching, and like I always say, hope to see you someday in the black.